Hello everybody and welcome to this introductory tutorial on Twine. So first of all, what exactly is Twine? So Twine is sort of a game engine that creates that you can create to choose your own adventure sort of games in. So if you remember any of these books where you used to be able to open the story and it'll be like, oh, you're a space captain and you have a beacon asking for help from a planet, or you have a pirate ship that you've got to try and blast down. What do you do? Do you deal with the pirates, space pirates? Turn to page 23. If you want to go to the distress beacon, go to page 145. It's that sort of thing. So these books were originally created for youngsters, and so they're written in the second person. So, like I say, you are a pirate, you are a cowboy, and you make the decisions. So the way they're formatted is that they have sort of these like mini chapters. And then after a couple of pages, you're usually faced with two or more options. Each leads to more options, so there's like branching paths and multiple narratives. There's Each book had a different number of endings. It could be that there was a lot of endings or not that many endings, and there was no clear pattern in terms of how many bad endings versus how many good endings you got. Some of the books maybe had one good ending, whereas some others might have had multiple ones. The books allowed for the possibility of repeat reading, so it had like replay value, because you could read the same book again immediately after finishing it and have a different story in it, which is one of their distinguishing features. So Twine is a tool for creating hypertext, and hypertext is basically just links that you click on to go between. The player makes a decision about what page they go to next. So it's much like the internet when you click on a hyperlink, because you're making the decision to go to the new page. Twine used to look like this, but this is just to show you how it's laid out. So you basically, in Twine, you have these things called passages, which are like mini chapters, and you sort of start with one, you get multiple options to go through different ones, and then they can become more complex the more you use them. So a couple of examples of really complex ones that I found screenshots of, like these look pretty insane about how many passages all link to each other, and this one even more so. So there's lots of potential for Twine to make quite interesting and intriguing stories that sort of link together. This is what it looks like at the minute. This may change in the future, but you have your passages and it shows how they connect together through these arrows. So I'm just going to show a quick example of a Twine game. So this is one I made just to show my students what they look like. So it says here, you sit down at your PC to learn about this thing called Twine. Stuart has sent you this weird game to play to try and learn about it. So you've got these options here, but also there's an option here to click on the word Twine. So if I click on that, a quick Google search yields the following results about Twine: a strong thread or string consisting of two or more strands of hemp or cotton twisting together. And then it mentions some other stuff. You could say, I don't think this is the Twine that Stuart meant. Be outraged that you are here to learn about how to make games, and instead you are having a lesson about string. So I can click that and be outraged about it. You yell at Stuart, I'm outraged that I'm here to learn about making games, and instead you're having us do a lesson about string. Stuart rolls his eyes at you. Just play the game, he says. What game? You are playing the game. This is it. Oh, I love it. I'm glad you think so. I made it in about an hour to show an example of what a basic choose your own adventure game might look like in Twine. I'll be using Twine to demonstrate the use of basic programming elements, but for now we'll just make a basic game. Great, let's get started. So when you click that, it takes you to the Twine homepage. So I've got the page up here in my web browser. This is quite a useful web page if you're just getting into Twine. The URL is twinery.org. And so here you've got the option to download the desktop version of Twine. You can support Twine by donating stuff. So on here you've got links to the Wikipedia, you've got Q&A, you've got example Twine. Here's some games that you can play that people have made. There's loads of help on here. So if, for example, if I just go to the Wikipedia, the wiki page for Twine, you can see here it's got tutorials and Twine 2 guides and references, links to all sorts of things, information about the different story formats. If I go to Twine 2 guide here, then you can see like the first things that you'll learn. So if you'd rather read through this than listen to me go on about it, this is probably the way where you want to head to. Getting started with it, where are your stories saved, creating your first story, how to learn it. Stuff like here, add stats, RPG battles, or just plain random events, inventory systems, change the font colors or appearance, add images, all these different things that you can do in Twine. So if you want to learn about that stuff, head to that link. So you, like I said, you can download a desktop version of it, but today I'm just going to show you the use online version. So this allows you to just use it in your web browser. So if I click on here, use online, I'm just going to open it in a new tab. So this is what the sort of your stories page looks like. So it may be empty if you've never used this before, but for me I've got this example, which is the one that I just showed you, where you can go to Twine. I don't think that's the one he meant. Be outraged, play the game, etc, etc. So there's other like branching narratives, and you can sort of see how they intertwine and link to each other. But I'm just going to create a fresh one, I think, for now, just to go through the basics with you. So to do that, you just hit add story. So I'm going to create a new story, and I'm going to call this just like a normal day. Not doing anything exciting, just going to be a normal day for the player. So this is going to be like a really boring one, but I'm just using it as an example. Okay, so this is your sort of story grid, and these are your passages that I was mentioning before. So these act as your mini chapters in your story, and you can sort of link them together to create these branching narratives. You can drag these around however you want. You can use the sort of mouse wheel to navigate. There's also, you can scroll along this bar if you want to as well. Couple of things about the interface. So down here you've got this quick find thing, which I've never actually used, but I'm guessing if you're looking for a particular word, so if, say you've got quite an in-depth Twine, you can find a particular word and find passages with that in if you want to change it or something like that. You've got these options here, these sort of three squares options will zoom in and out. So say you end up with quite a lot of passages, then you can have it like that, so you can navigate them at a smaller scale, and then you can go even smaller, so you can just see how things link up in this sort of giant web. But for now I'm just going to leave it at the zoomed in version. You can there's a few options here. Wouldn't worry about any of this for now. You can rename the story if you want. You look at story statistics, so you can sort of see. So currently your story has this many characters, this many words. It has one passage, links, broken links, which is quite useful if you're trying to stick to a word count or you're just interested in that sort of thing. You can also snap to grid. So if you want these to snap into this grid in the background, you can do that as well. So let's just get started with this then. So when you hover over a passage in your grid, you get these options. So you've got the pretty self-explanatory. If you hover over them, it tells you what they do. So this first one will delete the passage. This one will allow you to edit it. This one tests the story starting from here. So with that one, if, say for example, let's just add a couple of passages, right? Say for example, these passages all link to each other. but you don't want to test the game from here. You want to test it from like further down in your story. You can use that bug and it will sort of test the story from that passage. It can be quite useful if you're just testing stuff out. This last one sets this passage as the starting point for your story. So if you notice, it's got like a little rocket ship symbol. That's just to indicate that the game is going to launch from this passage. And the way I added those new passages there was I just clicked on the plus passage button. But we'll go into how we can create passages in a little bit. I think that's everything I wanted to go on about that. Yeah, so to edit these passages, you can either go to the pencil or double click on them, and it brings up the edit passage thing. If you delete all of the text from there, it will give you some sort of tips about how to change the text. So you can say you can set things to bold or use italics, or you can use HTML tags. If you want to display special symbols, then you use backticks. It tells you how to link to other passages. It talks about macros. Talks about hooks. Stuff that you can just read and try and figure out. But for now, I'm just doing the basic linking between passages. So this start passage, I'm just going to call start. Whoops. And I'm just going to make the game about just like a normal day. So you wake up to the sound of your alarm buzzing. Okay, so this is the start of my story. So now if you go back and one thing's important is that you need to click off using this cross usually. I'll explain why in a second. But yeah, if you go back to here, you'll see it's changed the name of the passage, and it also shows you the first few lines of the passage. You wake up to the sound of your alarm buzzing. So if I actually play this game now, this is what it'll look like. So it's just a black background, white text. That stuff you can change, but I'm not going into that today. You wake up to the sound of your alarm buzzing. So that's basically what the game currently looks like. Obviously, there's no interactivity in here yet because we've not actually added anything. So to give the player options, the way we do that is we add links to new passages. So the way that Twine handles that is you use 2 square open brackets and then 2 square close brackets. So you'll notice that these have now turned blue. This indicates that this is a link to a new passage. The square brackets are found next to your P key on your keyboard. And so if I type in here the options that the player can select, so for example, maybe you want to hit snooze on your alarm, or maybe give the player the option to get up, like that. So now it's got these blue brackets around it, so this shows us that these are options that the player can choose. So if I just to show you what in some cases people will click off this, and in that case you'll get this red X indicating that there's a problem. So the reason that's happened is usually when you click on this cross, it will create new passages based on the passage text that you've input automatically, but because I accidentally clicked off it, it hasn't created them. Usually the best way to fix this, I found, is just select all of your text and get rid of it. So cut it using Control and X, open it back up, paste it in, and this time use the cross symbol, and then you'll see that it's actually created 2 new passages based on the options that I've given it. Hit snooze, get up, and there they are, hit snooze and get up. One more thing, I don't really use this, but you can go full screen with this if you want to write loads of text, but I probably wouldn't recommend doing that for Twine passages really. So now that I've done that, I can now open up the hit snooze passage, and I can say something like, oh, you want 5 more minutes of sleep, so you hit snooze. And then give the option to the player to go back to sleep. And then I can say, right, get up. You get up. What do you do next? And then give the player the option to get dressed. I don't know, have a shower. And then maybe eat breakfast. So the player's got all those options. If I click the cross now, it's created those 3 passages. So now that you know that, basically you can make a branching story however you want. What's important to remember is that you can link passages to you can link to a passage from any other passage. So an example of this could be in the hit snooze one. Rather than creating a new narrative from that, maybe I'll just go back to the start passage, so it comes up with this again after you've hit snooze. So if I open this up, and what I'll do is I'll say go back to sleep. Now if I do that and click cross, it's going to create a new passage. That's not what I want to do. I actually want to go back to this start passage. But to reference another passage, you have to use the passage name. So I would have to put in here start, and that would take me back to the start passage. So I'll just get rid of this one. But obviously, in the context of the story, when you're playing it, so if I hit play actually, and just show you what it currently looks like. So you'll notice it's giving me these options. I can hit snooze or I can get up. If I get up, and it's giving me these options, and then the story can branch. You've also got the option to undo and go back one. So in the context of the story, awake with the sound of the alarm buzzing, hit snooze. You want 5 more minutes, so you hit snooze. Now, I need to reference that start passage to go back to it. So if I click start, it'll take me back. But in the context of the story, pressing the word start doesn't really make a lot of sense. So what I can do instead here is I can reference this passage, so it'll link to that passage, the start passage, but actually put different text in. So make it say something different. There's a couple of ways that you can do this, and it does mention them here. So to link to another passage, write the link text and the passage name like this. So you can write the name of the passage, and then a sort of a dash, and then a greater than symbol, and then the passage name. Or you can just do it like that, or you can do it the opposite way around if you want. But the easiest way I found to do it is to use the symbol which is above the backslash next to your Z on the keyboard. So if you press shift and then the backslash, it creates this this line, and that functions the exact same way as what it's suggesting there to do with a dash and a greater than symbol, but you just use less keys. I just find this quicker. So instead of saying start, I'll say something like go back to sleep. Okay, so now what it'll do is it'll say go back to sleep, but when I click on that text, it will take me back to the start passage. So I'll just test that out to make sure it's working. So it's linked still, you can see with the arrows. So if I hit play, you can sound your alarm buzzing, hit snooze, it says go back to sleep, but if I click that, it takes me back to the start passage. Another thing to note is that you can have as many links in your passages as you want. So here I've got 3 links, and here I've just got 2. You could even just have the one option, like in this example. You can have no links. So maybe when I eat breakfast, I'll put someone poisoned your toast. Game over, right? So that's actually a dead end now. So in the story, you can it's similar to the choose your own adventure books. You could die. You could get to a certain point where it would be like, oh, it's game over. So you just have to start again. So I could say game over. I could also give the option for the player to like restart game and then link to the start passage. So that then now will return the player back to the start. So you can see how these all link up. The other thing to note is that you don't necessarily have to have all of your options after you've told the player what they have to do. So I could say, for example, take this sound text, wrap it around a couple of these, the square brackets, create a new passage from that, which is here, and then I could sort of add a description about it. The sound is awful. You just want it to stop. So then maybe I'll just give the player these options again. So I'll just copy those and paste them into here. So there we go. It's starting to look a bit more complex now. So if I hit play, oh, hang on, let's get rid of that. If I hit play, you'll see, okay, you wake up to the sound of your alarm buzzing. So you can click words in the middle of sentences. So here, for example, I can click sound. The sound is awful, you just want it to stop. So I can say, right, okay, hit snooze then. You want 5 minutes, so you hit snooze, go back to sleep, you wake up to the sound of your alarm buzzing. So that's sort of created a loop now, which you can do as many times as you want, but the story won't progress obviously until you get up and you take one of these options. Maybe eat breakfast, someone poisoned your toast, game over, restart game. So I've started again from the beginning. So that's pretty much the basics of making this interactive story where the player can choose what options that they want. Couple more things that I just want to go through. So to save this, one thing that's important is that this is all saved in browser at the minute, because when I was here, I clicked use online. It's now just working in browser for me. So it's just a tool on the web. So if I then open up Twine on another PC, this isn't going to be here. If I go open up the use it online, it's not going to, these aren't going to be here because they're specific to this computer. So if you want to save Twine stories to work on them later, you need to go down here where there's the name of your story, click the arrow, and it's got some options. I think view proofreading copy shows you just all of the text, so you can check it for spelling and stuff. So to actually save your game, you hit this and you go publish to file. So what that does is it will publish your Twine game as an HTML file. So you can do a couple of things with that. You can upload that to a website like GameJolt or itch.io where people will be able to play it online, but you can also use that file type to edit it in Twine. So just to show an example, there's a couple in here called Twine example, my first day at college. I'm just going to save that as normal day. So now if you go to another PC or open up another web browser and you're on this home page, then you should be able to go to import from file, choose a file, and then select where those things were saved. So yeah, so I saved them to my desktop. So I've got my first day, normal day, and Twine example. So on there, I don't actually have my first day at college. So if I open that, you'll see here that it's loaded that up. So I can double click that and edit it just like I was editing the other one before. So if you want to, you can do that. You publish the file thing, you can do two things with that: upload it somewhere for people to play it, or you can upload it to somewhere like Google Drive or OneDrive, or you can email it to yourself or save it to your desktop PC or whatever, and then you can edit it at a later date.
Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much the basics of everything that you need to learn just to get started with Twine to make your branching narratives. In the next video, I'll be talking about variables, functions, and if statements, where you can have some real fun with this. But yeah, thanks for watching.